From the shadows, she appears. Jennylyn show, illuminates and tells me all yearn to know. With beats that pulse and sense that ignite, taking us to new heights.
Hello, this is Jennylyn, and back with a series I'm sharing with you that I call My Nightmare, and this is segment 8. If you are seeing this segment, it may not make sense unless you've looked at the previous segments. Please feel free to go take a look at those because then you'll understand what I'm talking about. Also, this show is not for everyone because what I'm sharing can make people uncomfortable. I'm living it. And when I go back and listen to myself share it, it makes me uncomfortable. So if you are not someone who can handle what I'm sharing, please don't watch this. It's not as bad as that it might sound now, but it's different. And for some people, it's scary. So just a word of caution, you have to have a thick skin to watch this because I am sharing the truth. This week I wanted to start off with this. Something that I read, and it's by Jordan Maxwell. And this is what he says. He is a preeminent researcher and author of Matrix of Power. And he said, we have no comprehension at all of the divine. The world is far bigger and deeper than we understand. We have no comprehension of what really goes on. What goes around comes around. And as a time in which the powers of the universe are going to enlighten mankind, whether they are ready or not, for what is coming in the near future. What we are faced with in this world is consensus reality. It has very little to do with the real truth, as evidenced by what I'm living and sharing that a lot of people have never heard of. This week's segment, I'm dedicating to Jackie and Alan Seidel, Katrine and Andy Sanfilippo, and I've mentioned them in a previous segment, for encouraging me and greatly assisting me with the transition from New York to California. The first 5 to 6 months of my life in New York, I lived with these two families at different times. And today, I'm going to start right into what happened. So I moved from New York, and if you listen to the last segment where I was talking about the move, I mentioned that I got very sick the day of the move. I have a good friend who's a doctor who came to my hotel because I was too sick and didn't have enough time to go to the hospital between the time I moved and getting my flight the next day. So he brought me some medication at the hotel where I was staying, and I started it. So I arrived in New York, and the day after I arrived, I was making dinner for everybody at home. I was almost through with dinner, and I said, I'm not going to be able to eat with you guys because I am not feeling well. I felt nauseated, I felt really ill. So I went to lie down, and during the night, I had a really high fever, and I broke out in a rash. Katrine and Andy were angels. They took great care of me, but they realized that something was wrong. And early the next morning, Andy took me to the emergency. I barely got there in time. They reeled me in and got an IV going because my throat was closing. Turns out The medication I was taking had sulfur, and apparently I'm allergic to sulfur drugs. So I was in the hospital for the entire day. And the next day, as I was going to the pharmacy to get some medication. And I lived in a tall building, similar like a hotel style building with 6 floors. And I was staying on the 6th floor. So the next morning I took the elevator down and I walked out of the building. And as I came out of the front door, you would not believe what I saw. A squirrel. You might be thinking, what's wrong with you? Squirrels are everywhere, and when did squirrels become a problem? Well, if you've been watching the other segments, you will hear me say that squirrels have been used by evil. They embody the animal and they get it to do what they want. Currently, where I live, I watch the squirrel bringing things and leaving it in the back of my house constantly, going back and forth, burying things in the ground. That's for another segment. I'm only relating this so you can understand my thing with the squirrel. People who have visited me can tell you, and I'm hoping I can get some of them on the very last segment to share their experiences with me in California and the squirrel. But anyway, the minute I walked out, the squirrel turned its head and cocked its eye and started looking at me the way it always did in California. And it was really clear to me that moving to New York had not stopped anything. There was going to be a continuum of what started in San Francisco. And immediately my spirits fell and I became a little bit depressed because I didn't want and don't want to continue what I started in California. So I pretended I didn't see it and I kept going. But then over the week that I was there, every time I entered or left the building, I noticed certain things on the ground that used to appear at my home in California. So I left Kew Gardens in New York, where I was at that time, and I went to visit my girlfriend Jackie in Long Island to spend some time with her. And at this time, I did not have my car because I hadn't transported it to New York yet. It was actually en route. And so every time I walked out of the house, I saw the same things and I saw the squirrel. Not to mention, every night I went to bed, I was being poked, my hair was being pulled, and I realized that leaving California wasn't going to change anything. Now, I am not a dark person, and when I experience what I experience, and when I'm told some of what is happening to me, it makes me so uncomfortable that I can tell you, I am sure that I would never be someone to retaliate by fighting dark with dark because it makes me cringe. What I've gone through makes me cringe. So I don't even want to know how it's done. So I decided that I had to take care of myself because I didn't want to live the rest of my life like this. I just didn't know how. The universe has always had people in place to help me. God, although it may appear that I was alone, was always beside me, carrying me in this situation. And I'm now finding out was allowing most of what happened for me to do this, for me to come on here and bare my soul with what happened because someone out there or someone's need to hear a person who doesn't care what the world has to say about me sharing this experience because maybe, just maybe, I can help them by guiding them to the people with integrity and the tools to fight this, like Mel. And she is coming on next week. And at this point of the interview, I'd like you to know if you have any questions for Mel, about anything that I have shared or anything that is going on, you can email them to me if you know me personally, text them to me, or you can leave them in the comment sections of this interview. And again, Mel's information is listed in the bottom of every single video. But I have to tell you, after 20 years, I'm getting my love back. I can feel it, and I got my spark back because this woman had stolen my essence. And yes, people can steal your essence. She'll explain that to you next week. But it was retrieved, and yesterday morning, I had a phenomenal experience when I woke up. And I'm not sure if I'll be allowed to share it here. We need to check. But if I am, I will share it with you. But now my essence has been returned to me. So basically, what was stolen from me was returned to me. And those who know me can watch me glow up. Because what God intends for us, people can steal it temporarily. But if you stay in light and if you stay in love, God will give you what is yours. The goal is not to engage on that level. Do not fight dark with dark. Only fight dark with light and love. So back to the story. One day I was visiting my mother, and I have a brother who lived in Guyana, and he just happened to be in Guyana visiting my mother at the same time. And out of the blues, he looked at me because I've hidden this from my family. Nobody knew what was going on. He looked at me and he said, "Girl, something is wrong. Somebody is messing with you. I am taking you to Guyana with me. I know someone who knows someone who might be able to help you." And that is how my brother took me to Guyana, and I went to visit an amazing woman named Laura. When I went to Laura's house, my brother dropped me off. He had to get there like 5 in the morning. The lines went down the street practically. I waited from 5 until 10 in the morning before it was my turn to see this woman. The first question she asked me is, "Girl, you're a good person with a beautiful soul. Why does this person hate you so much?" And I looked at her because she had already ID'd Sandra from the pictures I took with me. Anyway, she did the best she could to help me and told me certain things I needed to do when I came back to the United States, except it didn't really help me much because Sandra was doing this daily and weekly. Like what she was doing to me was a daily ritual. And turns out she has engaged a full staff of people, some here in New York. Twice or 3 times I've caught them outside of my house. That's for another segment, that work with her. So she practically has a payroll of workers working on me daily. Can you believe it? I've never done anything to this person. Anyway, I went to see Laura in Guyana, and she gave me a bath and details in the book, helped me the best she could, because I didn't live there, wasn't able to help me to take this to where she was able to do what Mel is doing. Now, one thing I would share at this part of this interview, of this segment, is everyone that I went to for help had a different modality. Some of them involved taking baths and doing different rituals. Some of them made me very uncomfortable, and I was feeling sorry for myself that I had been reduced to the place where I was even having these experiences. But now I know I had to tell you this story to help someone. So I came back from Guyana, hopeful, but on the plane flying back, the same happened, like everywhere. It didn't matter where I went, who I went to, coming back from wherever I went, CasSandra would make sure I knew that person didn't help me because I was attacked all the way home. So I'm in New York and stuff is still going on. Now, every day she went to my LinkedIn profile, she went to my YouTube channel, and I was told by spiritual healers that she was making sure every day to block me getting a job. I didn't have a job. She wanted me to end up on the street. And I didn't have money because all the money that I had while I was unemployed was going down the drain paying people to help me with this. The book will have details when it's published, and I'll be sure to let you know when that will be. So my girlfriend Jackie and her husband Alan, along with Andy and Katrine, were trying to encourage me to stay in New York. They thought, because they love me, that in order for me to have a better life, it was probably better to leave California. I did not want to tell them the same things were happening in New York. So I said if I got a job in 6 months, I would stay in New York. I did get a job in 6 months. I also found my own place. So I decided I needed to go to San Francisco and ship the things that I had stored there because those were my belongings. And if I was making New York my home, then I needed to bring my things. So the first thing I shipped was the car. That was another disaster. We'll talk about it another time. One thing I have to say, there wasn't anything that I did that didn't prove to be disastrous. So it was evident to everyone around me that there was something off about my life. And people who know me often made comments like, Jenny, you are the nicest person. How come these crazy things keep happening to you? And I never had an answer. I did not know. But pretty soon it was evident that someone was doing something wrong. And I knew someone was doing something, but I was not about to share any of it because of the judgment. So I secretly grieved that everybody was normal and I didn't. And I looked at everyone living their best life while I just struggled and could not understand or explain what the hell happened. Because I'm a go-getter and I make things happen. And I've made many things happen in my life. So when I arrived at this place, it was really difficult for me to understand why, because I didn't know another person could steal your essence and steal your life and block you. So there was no way for me to connect the dots as to what was happening to me. Eventually, I started my new job and I moved into a home that I was living in Long Beach, New York. Beautiful home on the water. One of the first things I noticed one morning on my way to work, there was a dead bird at my front door. Yeah, I never told anyone this. I opened the door and there was a dead bird. I did not know what to do, but I knew that that bird, because by now I knew the signs, that some sacrifice had been made using this bird. I'm on my way to work. It's a lot of traffic to get to work from where I live to the place where my physical location of the job was. And so I thought to myself, what do I do with this? After what I shared in a previous segment that I found outside of my clinic, and then I was told I shouldn't have touched it because it was a ritual to shut my business down. And when I picked it up, I gave life to whatever the ritual was. So now I was afraid to touch this bird, but I was afraid to cross it also. I did not know what to do. but I knew I had to do something. And I'm not someone who will roll over and cry. I find ways. So I went back in the house. I got salt. I got ammonia. I poured ammonia all over this bird. Thank God the water went down on the ground and not the people below me. And then I went back inside of the house. I got a little shovel thing that I had, threw it in a plastic bag, walked it to the dumpster behind the house where I lived, and dumped it. Shortly after that, I went home to California in an attempt to purge my storage. Because when I stored everything, I wasn't planning to stay in New York. That was a disaster. You can't purge your storage, it's fully packed. That's what I learned. And so I gave away a lot of stuff to people, random people that were driving by in the storage area. Ended up giving away some of my nicest things, but that's okay. If someone is enjoying it, it's all good. And then I flew back to New York. When I got back to New York the next morning, I woke up covered in a rash. I was really sick for 6 months. I was sick. My face was swollen. I have pictures. I'm going to put them on here. I went back and forth to the doctor for 6 months. They could not figure out what was wrong. Until finally, one of the doctors decided to biopsy the rash on my body, and they found out I had a rare autoimmune disease that was associated with cancer. Now, I'm not saying Sandra is the reason for this autoimmune disease, but I must tell you that when the woman from New York who stayed in my house, that was in her employ, stayed at my house, she gave me something to drink. And the shaman from India who helped me, the one who caught the entities, told me I was given something to drink that would give me a skin disease that would eventually kill me. I don't know if it's because he's told me this, because ultimately God is the only one who has power over my life. But I believe this autoimmune disease, no one in my family has it, somehow had something to do with what I was given to drink, because shortly after she left my house, a line appeared going up my arm in the form of a rash. And it started on that arm. I started with this rash. And when I went to the doctors, they told me it was eczema, but it was not. They didn't do enough testing in California, and they weren't able to determine it was an autoimmune disease. I'm not going to put the name here for a good, because I'm being told not to say the name of it, but I'm going to beat that too, because nothing beats me. I beat everything. And I've already commanded it, because if you look at my skin, it's clean. Back then, it wasn't. So something in the house where I was living was triggering this autoimmune. So I realized then I could not stay in that house. But in the meantime, my stuff was on its way to New York, to that address. And I paid a fortune for me with no money to get the stuff to me. When I first hired the rental company, they told me it would be $2,500 or $2,700 from the storage in California to the house where I was living in Long Beach. And when they actually picked the stuff up, it tripled. Didn't double, tripled in cost. That was another nightmare. But when these things were almost in New York, I found out I could not stay in that house, because what this autoimmune was being triggered by something in the house. So now I have to move again. One of the things I found out is this autoimmune disease is associated with cancers. So apart from all the other things I was going through, I had to move to that place in Long Beach. I started a new job. I'm sick, 6 months. And now I find out I have to move again. I left that place and I was staying with my friend Katrine at once more because I was too sick there and was worried that I would die. I really was. And so I stayed with her until I found the home that I live in now. The day of the move from that home to this home where I live now, I was very, very sick. I took a day off work. I hired movers. The movers got there, reloaded everything, moved it to this house. The cost is another thing. The same amount of money that it cost me to move my things from California to Long Beach, it cost me to move from Long Beach to this house. And I'm already financially challenged. I'm sharing all of this to show you what I've overcome. And I am still positive. I am still happy. I've never lost it. I've never tried in any way to retaliate in kind. But I moved to the new home. It took a while. Once I got everything here, I decided that I wouldn't try to do it all in one day. Although in 1 week, you would have thought I lived here my entire life. Because I'm like that. I won't sleep until the place is organized and beautiful. Because that's just who I am. 1 week later, I went in the back of the house where the trash is to put out the trash, and I found a dead bird, just like I did in Long Beach, at the base of the stairs. Sandra Tong has not stopped. She has not stopped. And the rest of what is going on, I'm going to wait until Mel comes to share with you. The good news is I have my power back. She no longer has power over my life. She is doing what she does. And last night, every night before I do a show, or every night before I do a segment, she seems to know. I'm told she has minions, is the name I was given, who follow me and report back everything I'm doing because Mel has removed the tracker she had put on me. In the physical realm and world, this all sounds so out there and la. I'm here to tell you it is not. It is not out there. It's not la. It is happening. Believe it or not, it is happening. Which is why I am neglecting to share more details on this platform. For those of you who know, and when you know, you'll be able to read those details in the book when it's finally published. And I must let you know that some people think I'm almost finished with the book, but I think the book is going to be finished when I could actually sit and write, because there are very few moments when I can sit without being disturbed. And by now, when I say being disturbed, I think you know, because I've been sharing this every week. My body is constantly pulled, my hair is constantly pulled, and there is something that nibbles on my leg, except I can't see it. And today, it started at 5 a.m. and it's still happening. And don't ask me how it's done. I don't know, don't want to know. I've just learned to ignore it. And so today, I'm going to cut the series here, and everything else, if you're interested, will be in the book in detail. And next weekend, Mel will be joining me, and she will share what we are allowed to share, because there's some things since we're still working, that we might not be able to share with you. But for the most part, I am trying to be as transparent as possible, not because I want anybody's approval, not because I'm looking for fame or anything, but because for the longest time I was ashamed of what was happening to me. But I'm being told there's nothing to be ashamed of. I've done nothing wrong. I just somehow managed to stumble upon a not so human person who is obsessed with the person that I am and has been following everything I do, and she wants to be me. And I'm very flattered by that. And if I could, I would help her to be me. But there's only so much I could do. She didn't have to choose this route because after 19 years of doing horrible things to me, which you'll read in the book, she didn't succeed and she will never succeed. And so I thank you so much for following me to this point. Next Sunday, Mel will be here with me. And you know what? I am not trying to put Mel and make Mel sound like she's superhuman, but she has been. I never thought I would meet a person like Mel. We've actually become quite close. And for the rest of my life, she is someone that will be going the distance with me. Because one thing I must tell you, she's never asked me for a penny. And 3 times a day last night until almost midnight, she was trying to clear my home and my bedroom so that I could sleep. Because CasSandra is unhinged. She is unhinged because she knows her time is up. Game over. Because I stand in my power now. I have it back. And I'm ready for her. And I am fighting with God. I am fighting with light and love. And everything I can give her and send her is beaming light and love onto her soul. Because that's all I do. That's all I have to offer. And I will see you next week with Mel. Don't forget, if you have any questions you want Mel to answer for you, you can either text me, email me. I think my email address is beneath this segment, or you can leave it in a comment and I will make sure to give Mel those messages. And next week, I'll do a brief introduction and then Mel can answer those questions for you. Thank you guys so much. I am not a hero. I'm just undefeatable because I fight with God. See you soon. Bye-bye.
From the shadows, she appears. Jennylyn Show.